Continuing education knows that at the end, students want to graduate, and we can help them do that because we take the time to really listen to their needs, and we understand all the different options that are available across the campus for them.
We don't take a cookie cutter approach. We realize each student comes with their own story. So whether it's a part-time student looking to complete a degree program or someone just looking for online courses, we're there to connect them to the resources of the university.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Caruso. I'm a Boulder person, a tech entrepreneur, been part of 3 startups, all of which went public, and all of which sold for more than 10 billion, actually more than 14 billion. You probably heard of Level 3 if you're from this area. I was one of the founding executives of Level 3, and then I led the founding of Zale Group just about a mile from here, took it public in 2014 and sold it in 2020. And I'm now more of an investor of tech companies, including multiple quantum companies, including multiple space tech companies, 2 industries that are really big here in Colorado, as well as a range of other tech companies that are more traditional venture type companies. I'm really glad to be here and lead this panel. So for recording purposes, today is April 11th. 1:45 p.m., and this is panel number 18008, titled Business Breakthroughs, New Science and Technology Changing the Economy. And before we get started, the University of Colorado Boulder, Colorado's flagship university, honors and recognizes the many contributions of indigenous peoples in our state. CU Boulder acknowledges that it is located on traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native American nations. Their forced removal from these territories has caused devastation and lasting impacts. While the University of Colorado Boulder can never undo or rectify the devastation wrought by indigenous peoples, we commit to improving and enhancing engagements with indigenous peoples and issues locally and globally. We will do this by recognizing and amplifying the voices of Indigenous CU Boulder students, staff, and faculty and their work, educating, conducting research, supporting student success, and integrating Indigenous knowledge. Through consulting, engaging, and working collaboratively with tribal nations to enhance our ability to provide access and culturally sensitive support, and to recruit, retain, and graduate Native American students in a climate that is inclusive and respectful. One other thing I'd like to mention is Q&A. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this discussion. Will you be using note cards? So please fill them out. If you're a student, please note that in your question. When you finish, raise your hand, hand it to the producer. Where's our producer? Our producer, and they'll bring them up here and we will ask questions. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. And you can find more information about them on the website. So we'll start with Laura Harder, who's a veteran. Thank you for serving our country. She is a cybersecurity professional with a career spanning over 23 years, extensive military experience, including 9 years in the Army and 13 years in Air Force Reserves. She currently serves as an offensive cyber officer. Her dedication to cybersecurity extends across various sectors, from government contracting to federal civilian roles in both the private and public sectors. Would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. If you were here yesterday, I probably scared you. I'm so sorry.
Great. Second, we have, second but not in second order, we have Moses Ma, who's attempting to live the life of a modern Taoist. Am I pronouncing that right?
Taoist.
Taoist. Over the years, he's enjoyed being a video game designer, an artist, an internet visionary, and a high-tech entrepreneur, filmmaker, physicist, Buddhist, and a martial artist. Damn. Today he runs Future Lab, which is a venture studio, which I'm going to want him to tell you guys what a venture studio is, with startups in AI, blockchain, enterprise computing, mobile apps, pandemic management, and most recently focused on technology to mitigate the societal impact of generative AI. And lastly is Flo Mezoldi. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Good.
Help us out here.
Good. Yeah,
That's
Mazzoldi.
okay. All right. Technology executive who has led digital transformations in several industries. Since 2018, he's been running digital technologies at Ginkgo Bioworks, a biotech company that designs and engineers microbes for various applications from food, fragrance, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture. And before we start with the questions, I'm going to do a simple quiz for the audience. Okay, these are yes or no questions. They're very quick. The first one I hope it's find easy. Who here owns a TV? Raise your hand. Who here has CNBC on their TV? Okay, a little tougher one's next one. Who has a DVR? Knows how to record. All right, tonight at 8 p.m. on CNBC is Cities of Success featuring Denver and Boulder. The texting here, and Caro Quintella, who's next door and stealing some of our audience, is the host of that tonight. So, and yours truly is one of many people featured on it. So please help us celebrate Denver and Boulder by watching the show.
What time and where?
CNBC tonight at 8 p.m. Great. So let's start. And I want to start by, this is about technology breakthroughs, and we are living in a time of massive, and sometimes scary technology breakthroughs. In the press a lot is AI, but there's other ones as well. There's what's going on with blockchain, and there's what's right on our horizon and a hotspot here for Colorado, which is quantum, and offers a lot of reasons to wonder what the future is going to be like. And then we have a whole space economy that's really starting to take off. So with that as context, can I ask our panelists, what worries you most about how these technologies are going to clash together and change our future, and what excites you the most?
I'm going to go with excites. I don't like the worries.
You have to do both.
Yeah. Well, so what excites me is my particular field is on synthetic biology. It's making organisms that solve problems. I think that as we get better and there are more scientific breakthroughs that make this the ability to understand biology and engineer it better, we're going to be able to solve many of the problems that we have today. So I'm super excited about being able to apply this new technology to new problems. So that's mine. At the same time, this technology becoming more accessible, it could be, it could be dangerous if misapplied and we don't put the right controls on how to engineer biology. So it's a give and take. It's a super powerful tool, but at the same time, you can get hurt very quickly. We've all seen many movies where that happens.
But tell us how you're most concerned that it could be used inappropriately in a way that affects society, and what we need to do to get in front of that.
Yeah, so the obvious ones would be something gone wrong in the lab that goes out of the lab, bioweapons. Yeah, those two would be the ones that I call immediately as potentials. And I think what we need is a better regulatory framework. The regulatory framework around synthetic biology is fairly light right now, and we need more control of how this technology is evolving. We do have some controls that companies use. So, for example, if you want to synthesize DNA, whoever can synthesize DNA is going to run your order through a process that determines whether that could be bad or not. So that's at least some level of protection. But in general, I think that there are other ways that you could use the technology for bad.
I'll take a crack at it. So I'm going to paraphrase Winston Churchill. Human beings will always do the right thing after exhausting every other possibility. Right? Because humans are stupid. And a really good example is AI. AI is amazing. Just a few years ago, the limit was, could it pass a Turing test? And now it not only passes the Turing test, but that's like table stakes for any application. It's got to sound like a human. It's got to make music like a human. It's got to make videos better than a Hollywood filmmaker. One downside is, as we rush to these technologies, the World Economic Forum released a report estimating that 85 million people will be laid off as we transition to an AI economy. Now, I don't know about you, but I expect humans to hoard toilet paper. I expect corporations to do the equivalent, which means we're going to lay people off before training them, and then find out we don't have enough people trained, and then overpay them, and then kind of do it wrong and basically shoot ourselves in the foot. So the project that we're working on it should be named the Let's Not Shoot Ourselves in the Foot project. But we call it the Manhattan 2 project. It's how do you train 100 million people in AI skills in 2 years at an incredibly low price by using AI to teach AI. And that's the project that we're working on. It gives you an example of what we should fear the most is ourselves. But at the same time, if you look at why this product will work, it's because it teaches us to understand what works in teaching. And if you remember like the best thing you ever learned in school, you probably won't remember a subject, you'll remember a teacher that cared. That teacher that cared for you is what changed your life. So how do you preserve that EQ inside of an AI so that's spread? So those are the kinds of questions we ask is, how do we make AI make us more human?
Well, hopefully we can keep all our secrets safe and locked away and behind cybersecurity coding. What do you think about that, Laura?
One of the things that I think is in the forefront of the future is about quantum computing. Quantum computing is an incredible advance. It takes us kind of from, if you all remember back when you have bunch cards and you had databases, right? These big IBM machines that used to take up an entire room. And today, this is more powerful, right? It's more powerful than what went into space. Quantum computing is going to take things to the next level with some incredible work. But on the opposite side of that, the thing that we're most worried about is that quantum computers will allow us to break encryption. So there's a lot of files that have been stolen over the years, right? They've got lots of different types of information. And the things that I care about include all of you, but also our defense secrets. Right now, those secrets are okay because they're encrypted. And they're encrypted with something that's very powerful. It's this algorithm that you would take. It would literally take you hundreds of years to break the encryption, right? Thousands of years in some cases. Quantum computing is going to make that now small enough of a time where you could get those secrets out. Now, that may not be important to all of you. Maybe you don't care how the F-35 works. That's fine. Thank you for buying those for us, by the way. The technology to break that encryption today is being addressed. The National Institute of Standards and Technology just down the street, they worked and developed new encryption that is now supposed to be quantum level encryption. The challenges, though, are that that data is valuable. Just last year, $8 trillion were stolen as a result of cyber attacks. So all of you and your tax dollars, your family members, your credit card company, the insurance company that insures your credit card, all of those businesses are affected by these types of thefts. So if this information that was stolen maybe 5 or 10 years ago can't be accessed today, it might be able to be accessed 10 years from now when quantum computing has become more mature. But it's really just a matter of time. Just like those IBM machines used to be just one in every, like a few educational institutions around the world, once that they can achieve scale, once they can achieve the right conditions, which we can talk about, and that risk is really different for us. And today, what we're worried about versus what we're going to be worried about in 5 years is going to depend on that advancement.
So let me piece this all together. We have AI that's looming. about ready to take over kind of all of our work and bring us to a whole different level of intelligence. We have biotech that's going to be used to design humans to be able to do different things, not just grow origins, but maybe change their DNA. And then we have this thing called quantum technology, and they're all going to hit us together. Why won't there be this? Because I'm not worried about humans. I'm worried about this next generation thing called a superhuman that has genetically engineered things in their body. Little Johnny can run faster, little Jane can jump higher than other kids because their parents had money and they were able to buy them new stuff. And they then use their AIs, to do work for them. And quantum's around that makes them even that much more powerful. Why won't that be the end of humankind as we know it? You've got 1 minute to answer that question.
I'll talk about superhumans. No, nowhere close to do that yet. So I think it's going to be a few years. There is also a lot of, at least in the Western world, there are several pacts of not applying technologies like CRISPR to humans, so that we can figure out what the effects would be before we unleash some of these very potentially devastating kinds of technologies.
Well, that wasn't reassuring. You said 3 years and that the rogue nations are going to do it and we're not. Wow. Okay.
Hey, I can't control
I'll take a
it.
crack. Okay, so my favorite story about why we don't need to worry about technology so much is about Leon Serpolet. In 1905, he won the world speed record of 75 miles an hour. He's a daredevil driver, and he did it in a steam engine car called the Easter Egg. So it was an unbelievable speed. The year after, there was a meeting of a town council, and they brought in doctors, and they were trying to figure out these automobiles, how fast should be the maximum speed law be? And the doctors all testified that it should not exceed 5 miles an hour because human beings were not built to run at that speed and would go insane. And he estimated the speed of 20 miles an hour is the correct threshold for going insane. Now, if you look at any person today, they can drive 75 while putting on makeup or drinking coffee, right? It didn't take 100 years for human beings to evolve to that point. You wake up and you take a driver ed class and you can do it because you believe you can do it. So human beings will be able to outpower AI because you can believe you can do it, because you're more powerful than AI, you're more powerful than quantum, and you'll always be the master of the technology if you keep moving forward and evolving. So the only way to deal with the evolution of technology is to evolve faster than the tools that you're making. They're just driving you insane. They're not actually insane yet.
But isn't evolution just so slow? It takes like eons to even do a little bit of stuff. Why not just tweak around with the genes and make us smarter, faster, bigger, more handsome?
Yep.
Quantum
I need it.
technology could help us do that.
You go first.
Well,
There was this great joke that came out on the internet this year, right, last year. OpenAI and everybody was using AI tools, and so there was this fake job description, and it was going to pay like $1 million a year, and this person's whole job was to sit in a data center and just be there in case we need to turn off the button, right? Because technology requires electricity, and if it goes rogue, we often shut it down. Right, so there were 2 AI bots that were essentially put together just to see how they would work with each other. It was an IBM system and another system, and they developed their own language. And so the people who were moderating couldn't understand what they were saying to each other. So what did they do? They turned them off. They disconnected them. Right, we're still humans. Now there's some exceptions. Like you're not going to go to a satellite and go turn it off. It's very challenging to move 35,000 feet per second as you're going through geosynchronous orbit. But apart from not having physical access, there's still physical controls. We as humans can still, for the most part, walk into a server room, go to a server farm, and if you've never been in a server farm, there's a giant red button. It exists. You open up a case and you push the button. There are fail-safes for a lot of the technology that all of you are using. Do we, as business owners and as admins and staff, want you to push that button? Absolutely not. There's a lot of work involved in getting that stuff stood back up. But those things do exist. So like, I don't think that the Terminator is going to show up within the next 10 years and walk through the doors and be a threat to most of us. But exoskeletons, which is one of the proposed topics, right, does exist. I mean, that technology has been in development. It's gone through testing. It's been tested with militaries. Using that is different because we don't work in a vacuum, right? None of us operate in a vacuum. There are laws that we have to adhere to. There are policies. We have, agreements with our partner nations, and those we rely on because if one day our adversaries come knocking at our door, we want our friends there to help us with that fight. So we have to play fair. So I think that there's still some guardrails that protect us.
Okay. So back in about 1992, when the internet was a word that was just starting to enter our vocabulary, and I was back at, I think it was MFS at the time, and our CEO, Jim Crow, who was in this area until he passed away recently, he would describe the future of the internet being, you'll be able to take mail and put them, on these fax machines, and then use email to move information around. And we thought, wow, that's what the internet's going to do. But what the internet really did, and if you described it at the time, you would have sounded crazy. You would have said something like, wow, it's 1992. My vision for the future is I'm going to be carrying a device in my pocket, and we're going to call it a smartphone, and it's going to allow me to have a car show up, and I get in it, and it knows where it's going to go, and the payments take place all automatically. And people would look at you like, what's a smartphone? They would have had no idea what you're talking about. So what exciting things, as you look forward 10 years from now, not 20 or 50, not 3 or 4, but 10 years from now, with all of these advancing technologies, when they collide together, what's going to happen that's really cool, that you look forward to the most, that you think will be most impactful on our society?
I'm hoping that flow is really successful because I think that like biomedicine is incredibly interesting. If you have any pre-existing medical conditions, I'm not a very old person. I'm all of 41 years old, but I've had high cholesterol since I was 20, right? And so there's things that I have to contend with every day just because my ancestors like to eat deep fried bacon. It's fine. But I would love to be able to come to somebody, right, a company like his and say, hey, this is my problem, can you help me solve it? And have him solve it. And then I would love to be able to be there to protect you with your physical security, your cyber security, right? Because it's a real risk, right? I can't remember, this was several years ago, Cheney used to have a pacemaker, and we had to, his doctors had to turn off the Bluetooth in it because they were worried that somebody would essentially give him a heart attack if they were within 15 feet of him. And in the medical sector, right, those types of attacks were never considered. No one ever thought as they were making this thing to save someone from diabetes, from heart attacks, from any of the other wearable devices that people keep on them to keep them alive. No one ever thought, what if a bad guy got into these systems and wanted to hurt them? And so I'm hoping that people like me get to hang out, because I think this is fascinating, to say like, so Flo, how do we use that to kill someone? And then we work through that problem.
Yeah, that's cool. I am super excited about not killing someone with it. But in general, like the way that I think about biotechnology and synthetic biology is so today, creating one of these organisms is fairly expensive. I think several hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. If we can make that much easier to do to the tune of $50,000 or $10,000 per organisms, we should be able to address many more problems today with sustainable solutions, with organisms that can actually solve those problems for us. And that can go from simple things like sustainability with organisms that can chew plastic and degrade it, to hunger and creating organisms that help plants yield more and need less fertilizers, and all sorts of medicines, as Laura was saying. So the least expensive we make do one of these, and the easier we make biology to engineer, the more problems we're going to be solving, to the tune that we could get to a point where we make most of the stuff that we use could be made with biology. So that'd be huge.
You know, I agree that personalized medicine is probably one of the biggest breakthroughs. There's a very crazy billionaire named Brian Johnson. Have you heard of him? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's got a project called Blueprint. So when he sold his company to PayPal for like $800 million, he said, I want to live longer. And he's been spending millions of dollars on himself to reverse his aging. And, you know, he's actually getting some results that are useful. But the thing that I wonder about is, if you collect all the epigenetic and immunological data off of multiple devices about a single human, the amount of data storage you need over 10 years on a longitudinal study is immense. Like, you could probably only do 10,000 people, and it would double the amount of data storage you need on the planet. So that amount of data has to be compressed and saved in some way. So there's some really huge problems around being able to do these miraculous things. But I think something like that is definitely going to happen. But again, it's going to divide society between the haves and the have-nots. That the have-nots won't be able to afford the high-end personalized medicine that other people have. I actually think that many science fiction films are coming true. You know, it's like, what was that one where if you did good things, you get more time to live? You know, I can't remember the name of the movie, but that's basically where we're heading towards. It's like, if you work really hard, you might be able to get into one of these machines that scan you for cancers and can extend your life. But, you know, it's a very complex situation. My favorite quote's by E.O. Wilson. Our problem is that we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. You know, and we're supposed to figure that out in the next 10 years.
And on the notion of how much data you would need to understand and process and store in order to, you know, greatly advance kind of your medicine and your internal personalized medicine, that's where quantum computing is going to intersect some of these other things, because you need quantum technology to kind of cross that chasm. I love this question. It's from a student, and if you're comfortable doing so, whoever the student is, please raise your hand, because I love the word you use here. How can the relationship, so how can the relationship we build with AI help us prepare for the future new tech? Anyone want to claim that? Because it is awesome.
I have a love-hate relationship with artificial intelligence. I think that it's an enabling technology, right? It can enable you to do the right thing. But Moses, earlier, we were on another panel talking about AI. It also makes us dumber, right? And I think that that's the big problem, is that I have an adult daughter, and she cannot get anywhere without GPS. And when her GPS doesn't work, she literally cannot find her way. And Moses was alluding to that earlier. And it's that thing. It's if we use it all the time, right? If we're super reliant on a piece of technology, then you're less likely to be able to have the capability to do it by yourself.
It would make a great movie. SEAL Team 6, addicted to technology, right? It's like, which way's north, you know?
You know, I would say that that's true, except since like the very early 2000s, we had something called pluggers in the Army, and it was GPS to help us find the thing we were looking for. So we've actually been really reliant on GPS from a military standpoint for a long time. I love GPS, big fan. But on the opposite side of that, there's the bad pieces of it, right? So there's the bad guys are using it. They are leveraging it to create better malware, better phishing attacks, better ransomware as a service, right, that can do a lot of this for you and automate it, right? So there's a huge cost to all of us when it comes to that. I will tell you, I personally use AI tools. I use ChatGPT, and I use Copilot. I use all of these tools because I think it's important for us to be curious about them and learn them, because we cannot just put our heads in the sand and say, hey, I'm just going to refuse this, right? That's like refusing social media. It's like refusing, anything else that's in technology today. I think you should enable yourself to learn enough about it to either feel very comfortable or uncomfortable with it. It's fine. But know that it exists and know how to use it, because everyone is getting to that point right now. There's great use cases. There are some poor use cases. But I personally think that we need a little bit of both.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think in general it's super. It's been super useful for me since GPT-4, and yeah, useful in many ways.
But
I think that one
relationship. Back to the word relationship. What is relationship?
Yeah. So let me see if this goes into the relationship side. One of the scary things about AI is that, in general, many of these methods, we don't know how it works, and at least for me, it makes me feel like a loss of control. I didn't teach it all that. I don't know how it's thinking about that and giving me those answers. That's just scary stuff. So on one side, super helpful. On the other, okay, if it can do this, what else can it do? And as long as we have these specifically targeted AI models and we don't get into AGI, general intelligence, I think that it's kind of okay. The moment that the computer can start reasoning about itself and make goals for itself, it just feels much more scary. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying it. Sorry, I may be the stupid guy that he was talking about.
Mo and Flo. Yeah. The current AI product we're doing, it's called AI Mastermind, and what we wanted to do was help teach people AI skills using AI, but we found out really quickly that it isn't the content or the subject matter that makes you successful in learning. It was usually because some teacher believed in you when you were growing up. It got you turned on, and then you became a good student, and you wanted to learn. So the project we're doing is we're encouraging life coaches and actually some graduate students from the school to come and coach others who are older, maybe retired, and be loving, be supportive, and then use that. We do this over Slack. We capture their wording, and then we're going to train a large language model to be loving. So to infuse it with EQ. And what is the secret for how good teachers inspire people? So I think that's the angle that we're pursuing is, can you create a large wisdom model instead of a large language model?
Great, thank you. I'm going to put two questions together here because they're complementary, somewhat similar but complementary. One is there any chance that AI will end up making us better? Less tribal, more kind, more creative, etc. Another one, which is similar, is we know we have some challenges facing us in society: climate change, dysfunctional government, inequity. Great future tech on we have so much fear. Great future tech on inventions that will aid society, that will address these issues. So how will these combination of technologies either make us better as people, as humankind, or address the big challenges facing society?
My favorite subject. There's a term in paleobiology called coagunation. It was the first time a single cell organism went, hey, you want to connect and do something together? And the mutation was that it learned how to stick together and form cell walls. And from then, the explosion of what we know as multicellular life happened. If you study that process, it's very similar to what's happening to human beings right now. A kind of societal coagunation is going to happen where we willingly, temporarily give up our individuality in order for the greater good to achieve some goal. But where human beings are on that curve of coagunation is roughly around a slime mold. A slime mold can actually get together if there's no food, and then walk over to where there's food, and then dissolve again, right, into individual cells. That's probably where we're at. But my venture studio is based on what we call coagination technologies. How can we do things that can make big changes if people work together, and you could do it in a smart way to prove that it worked. So the challenges that we're going after is, how do you end pandemics forever, right? And how do you avoid AI job losses so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot? So those kinds of challenges, including climate change, are opportunities for humanity to learn how to work together. So don't think of them as hopeless challenges. They are opportunities for us to achieve this new level of societal consciousness, which I don't understand, but the examples of things that are winds of slime mold moving, a Human Genome Project, you got like 10,000 scientists that competed with each other, worked together, and got there, and unlocked the human genome. Linux is one, right? How do you get people in a non-commercial system, 1 million of them, to work together to create an operating system that everyone can share? And it worked. So these large, I call this big innovation, right? How do you get 1 million brains to apply cognitive effort in an aligned way that it solves big problems? And that's what I think the challenge is for humanity.
You're way more positive and life affirming than I am. I think I'm going to skip this one. I feel like such a pessimist. When you think about climate change, I grew up in the 90s, right? We had Captain Planet, and he was telling us that we need to recycle and save the earth. But then we watched, right? We watched businesses do things, right? Do things that created hazards and created more toxins. So it's such a challenge to see it from a business perspective. I understand that businesses have to make money, and so I'm so challenged by the coming together to do good. And probably because I spend so much time in less life-affirming space than most people, but I really struggle with that. We use artificial intelligence all the time. I use it to help me write emails. I will tell you that I will say, hey, help me write this email in response to this, and write it in a way that's friendly, because I don't want to have to think about the way to have to write it as friendly. The military taught me for many years to write very directive, which is you will, and then to do the thing. And sometimes it doesn't come off as friendly in email, as you can imagine. And so ChatGPT helps me write it in a nice way to sound friendly. I'm not using my brain cells in that way. So I think there are good ways. I think people can come together for good. But then I think about organizations like Anonymous, right? Anonymous can sometimes come together. They're a hacking group, and they will go after a target. And if you are that target, they're a bad guy, right? But if you are politically aligned with what they believe in, they're the good guy. So everyone has a point of view, and it doesn't necessarily mean because I'm from the United States and I have a very United States-centric approach, that's right? Because if I'm in another country, say I'm from Russia or China, I may disagree very much with this view. So I think there's a lot of balance there that's really a struggle for me. I'm sorry I'm not life affirming.
You could sell insurance really effectively.
Yeah, when you look backwards in time and say, has technology been a positive influencer to humankind or a negative influencer, I think it's hard to argue that it's been anything other than positive. People have food across the world, and they didn't always have food across the world. They had disease and would die at young ages. We still have disease, but for the most part, people in the world live a lot longer.
Yeah.
So there is an arc of positive around all this, concern and stuff. But that doesn't guarantee the future, and it doesn't mean that we're optimizing. There's two questions here I'm going to kind of work on together, because I think they're really getting at the same point. The first one is, and I think these are big issues, by the way, and I don't think they're easy ones to solve. And considering that most powerful of these technologies are most accessible to the richest and most powerful among us, how do we avoid techno-fuelism, where these power structures are further enable entrenchment themselves to entrench themselves and create greater inequity. Okay, it's something we talk about a lot today. The divide between the rich and the less rich is bigger. Well, I got news for you. It's going to get far bigger because the leverage of technology allows those who have greater influence, greater skill set, they could leverage them in ways now that they couldn't have 20 years ago. And 20 years from now, that leverage is just going to grow exponentially. So the forces of inequity are getting more powerful, not less. Doesn't mean we can't figure out a way to keep it in check, but that's a powerful force. So that one is similar. How do we ensure that the future is more inclusive and that technology is addressing problems that are marginalizing communities we are actually facing? And then I want to add one more wrinkle to it that brings together an earlier thought. Unlike any point in the past, so Moses, you don't get to be optimistic by saying the internet didn't take over the world and TVs didn't make us all dumb. It's different going forward, and we all have to realize it's different going forward. And I'm an optimist, but it's different going forward because no time in the past, no influence in technology ever has resulted in those with money being able to genetically do stuff to their offspring that make them different, perhaps better than other people. Those with money are going to be able to, when technology is available and maybe in rogue states, they're going to be able to do things that does make their kids perhaps taller, perhaps better looking, perhaps smarter. So not only do they have the benefit of more money, they may, for the first time in all of humankind, in a not too distant future, have the benefit of better genes. And they may view themselves as something more than human, and people who don't have access to that are maybe something less than human in the eyes of the people. There's been a great book written about that. So I don't think we could just look at the past and say all those fears of technology before aren't the big deal now. I think we're already seeing the effects of divides between those with money and those not. It's getting wider, and I think that's amplifying. So I want to end this on a positive note, not a negative note. Faced with that challenge, how do we worldwide, not just through regulation US, because rogue nations, are going to have different regulations. How do we not let this get the better of us as humankind?
I think the technology is really interesting in that it really levels the playing field in some ways. Today, if you go to Africa, the computers that you were using 10 years ago are there, right? They're being taken apart and put back together by engineers who are essentially creating new things out of old. I mean, we never had that use case. We never considered that. Now, does that mean that's necessarily always good? It happens. But today, a student anywhere in the world can go to the Harvard University Library and read a book they would have never had access to because they were never going to go to a Harvard library. They can go to the Library of Congress. They can go to all of these places. Imagine the library in Alexandria is available to them. Millions of books free. And I think that that's one of the ways that really technology has really created a level playing field if you knew where to go and you wanted to learn. So in that case, I do think it's very positive, right? From an information perspective. I think that there are some challenges, of course, because this is where I live in this space. But moving forward, I think that outside of the United States, right, we don't all have one mentality on what's right and what's good and what's right. The hustle and bustle we attribute to successful in the United States isn't the same if you go to Europe, right, where there's a little slower pace and they get to have a siesta. I would love to have a siesta.
It's great.
Yeah, 100%, like that would be amazing. But collectively as people, we haven't come together to be like, this is what collectively right looks like. And until we can get to some sort of place where we think these general things are right or wrong, to become that blob, right? What is it, the slime? Become the collective slime.
Slime mold.
And working together, I would love to see that in my lifetime. I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, I think what is kind of missing, we were in a different panel earlier today talking about this, what is kind of missing is an alignment on the problems that we need to tackle as a group. and to put some kind of prioritization around those problems, and the fact that we all believe that those are the problems that we need to solve. If we could make that happen, I think the overall way that society works, entrepreneurship and everything else would kick in to try to solve those problems, and we wouldn't have to reinvent a bunch of new processes and stuff to do it. But we currently we are currently very, very divided about what problems we do need to go solve and how to go address them. And I think
when
that
you're
that's
saying we, are you talking kind of we in a global sense or we in a national sense?
both. Yeah, both. I was talking national sense, but I think world also.
So we've been talking about cancer since I can remember.
Yeah.
Right, and the medical community has been working on cancer research forever and a day.
Yeah.
So do you all come together as, within the medical fields, and is there a lot of collaboration and it's moving forward? I only see the American side of it, which is more pharmacy, pharmacological, right?
Yeah.
Very disparate, very business oriented. Is there a collective effort for something like that?
No MD, so I don't know. But I can tell you that there is an enormous amount of funding going to research. We have cracked many of these diseases. One of the problems is they are all different. All cancers are different. But we have cracked some that were intractable before. So that's good news. But I share with you the following: with the amount of effort and focus that we put on that problem as one of the main problems that we're trying to solve, and we can't crack it. How come? Can we just fix this? How hard can it be? Oh my God! Delete that from the tape.
There's a researcher named Max Rosen. So he's collected data from all over the world. And the data he shows is that if you're dispassionate and look at actually what's happening in the world poverty is at an all-time low. Teen pregnancies have actually stopped for many reasons. The number of people who have died in wars has actually been steadily decreasing every decade. Things are actually getting better, but we have an ain't it awful-ism in our natural, life philosophy that just points out what isn't working so we can focus on it. But, again, to paraphrase someone, what was it Martin Luther King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it leans towards justice. I think that the arc of technology leans towards positivity, and that if you just trust in it, you'll get there. And a really good example is a close friend of mine, a year and a half ago, she called me and said, I have a backache. And she came over massage her lower back. And then she went home. And then the next week she called and said, it's not a backache. I went to the doctor and they did a scan. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer and I've got like 6 months to live. I said, oh my God. And she, bless her heart, didn't get negative about it. She said, if my life is going to be over, I'm going to go out with a bang. So she did Qigong, she did all these and mixed it in, embraced chemotherapy, enjoyed it, and wrote poetry about it, and was so positive, it was just like everybody would cry around her. And she managed to kick it. Her oncologist said it's only the second time in her entire career that someone went into remission after 5 chemo sessions, and she's been cancer-free ever since. So she said it was her attitude that helped. And that actually applies to society as well. If we have the right attitude, it will help. That's where you get resilience. Resilience comes from hope. And hope comes from, give me some evidence that I should hope. So the important thing is to take one of these little projects, make it work in a country or a state, and then show people, this thing worked. If we all do this together, pull our oars in the same direction, we will be the slime mold that made it to greener pastures, right? So anyway, that's why I'm positive, not because I'm Pollyanna, but because I look at real data and I'm not scared. I don't watch Fox. That's the other trick, right?
If you want a book that talks about what he was talking about before, Factfulness is such a book. It's really great, and it talks about all the facts about why we're better now than before. But it's still not great.
We're
Yeah.
steadily improving.
Yeah.
And if you just take that, there's hope.
Yeah.
There is always hope, but I do watch Fox. Does that make me a bad person? Do I have to leave now? These are a couple deep questions. They might be too deep for us to get into, but they come out of some of what was said. The first one really is questioning kind of the quote-unquote positives of technology can be said to be causing the degradation of our planet and our resources at a greater pace. So what kind of feedback loop does that give us? And I'm going to maybe twist the question a little bit and say, is there a solution to climate change? And if so, is the solution somewhere buried in the deep tech discussion that we've been having? Is deep tech the real solution, or are the forces of entropy going to doom us all? Ignore that last part. But the forces of technology, quantum, space tech, are there solutions to climate change buried within that?
I'll take that one on too. So there's a research firm in Iceland that is trying to develop a catalyst that turns smog, basically into water and oxygen. And the problem is that process is endothermic, so you have to put energy in to make it happen. They'd like to find a catalyst that automatically generates energy while it turns smog into water and oxygen. And their estimate is that it will take them, 10,000 years on regular computers, but it would take them maybe a month on a true quantum computer to find that catalyst. So yes, the answer is if you can unlock quantum computing, it'll solve the problem. Good example is do you remember a decade or so ago, everyone said, oh, the ozone layer is thinning, we're going to end. It's not thinning anymore. Everybody got together, passed the laws, and fixed the ozone layer. It's doable. So I think what we need is two things. We do need to continue investing in the future, like quantum technology, and that also doesn't mean just processors, but memory systems and everything else. But at the same time, we actually need to depolarize and start chasing after what I call coagination technologies, where we work together long enough to get to greener pastures, then we can start fighting again. So that's my suggestion, is that it's actually doable. We just have to have hope and make it happen. But yes, I think you're making great investments. Please keep throwing money into those companies. So that's going to take 10 years, but it'll really help humanity.
What about space tech? You guys know anything about how space tech might help our environment? This might be it might be an unfair question.
Definitely outside of my...
Yep.
Yeah, my favorite TV show was The Expanse. Did you ever watch that?
I have not, no.
Yeah, it's all about near-term space exploration and the political factions that form, when that happens, right? Yeah, I think, the NASA project produced lots of technology that affected life on Earth. Space tech will help us. It also gets people to work together to move to something else, right? I think it's been a long time since man returned to the moon. We should have built a station up there and kept continuing our progress, like in that TV show. What's that called? It's the one where, it's that alternate reality where we act, yeah, that show, I forget. It's a great TV show anyway.
Well, additionally, space tech space tech and other ways of pushing technology create breakthroughs that then can be applied to other problems as well. So I think that there is that cross-pollination going on that, everybody knows that Formula One creates the breakthroughs that then you see in normal cars a few years later, right?
There is a big part of space tech economy does pertain to rare minerals that exist on the moon and meteorites that can be gigantic sources of clean energy. once mined and brought back to the earth. So I think we are on an arc of consuming the resources of this planet, but I think human innovation aided by AI, aided by quantum, is going to find ways to address that are way beyond when you think about windmills or solar panels or the way we think to address them today. So technology, hopefully technology outpaces the other side. I think it will, but I think we need new technology to get in front of it.
The TV show was called For All Mankind. Any of you seen that? It's like the best sci-fi TV show, and it's kind of realistic because they use real science all the way through. It shows us where we could be going if we had the right direction. Any more?
I've got so many questions here, although I did cover most of them. But let me turn to the panelists. I'm kind of directing you guys the conversation. What haven't we covered that you guys want to share here? And if you don't have anything, I'll keep going with questions, but free form.
Yeah, I would like to end with shameless plugs, okay, if that would be okay. And then
We got 15 minutes, so
15 minutes.
we're not ending yet.
Ignore me, just I'll come back later.
No, please, go.
Laura?
Oh, man.
You got something?
Breakthroughs.
Just if you want. You don't need to. I've got plenty of other stuff here.
I can geek out about a technology that I really love, which is DNA nanotechnology. I think DNA nanotechnology is newer than synthetic biology that I know a lot about. But it does have a ton of potential it's basically a technology that allows you to create a molecule of whatever shape you want at the nanoscale level, which is something we really can't do. So I'm super excited about it. Don't know what it will do, because I think that it's still on basic science, and the translational pattern hasn't gone through, or the translational process into industry hasn't gone through completely yet, but the science is very science fiction-y.
You know, the thing from his world that I'm most scared of are home CRISPR kits, right, where hackers can kind of play with it. And my theory is that all of these zombie movies are actually like this telepathic message from the future. Don't do this, right? Don't take the cordyceps fungus and mix it with human genome to see what's going to happen, right? Because cordyceps is a really nice herb, right? They use it in Chinese medicine. No, don't do this, right? So that's what my favorite takeaway from there, like really control CRISPR. It's very dangerous.
That's the same thing he was saying, right? Like the designer baby type scare. Yeah, very much. I'm scared about that too, just to be clear.
All right, here's a simple question, and this is one you all can make money on, so you're going to want to listen carefully to the answers. Give an example of a new technology that is overvalued and one that is undervalued.
Social media is overvalued, in my opinion.
What is?
Social media is overvalued, in my opinion. I think it defies logic in a lot of ways of how valuable it's being assessed. I think X, formerly known as Twitter, is a good example of that. As far as undervalued, I think that today we are really challenged by economy, right? Like, what does the economy look like? And what I noticed in the last few years is the people piece, right? Like, that social interaction, like having the real, like not the social media where you're gonna have fights with strangers on the internet, but when you actually like go and talk to a human being and having that personal relationship and having the social skills to have a relationship with people is super undervalued, to the point that there are young people today that I talk with regularly about like becoming more people-like, right? Using social engineering tools really to teach people how to be people, because when they're coming into the job, like into the job market, there are some deficits that we know aren't happening. There are some young people today who just haven't been forced into those conversations. I have a 20-year-old daughter. She absolutely hates calling people on the phone. She would rather like a slow, painful death than to call a 1-800 number to talk to customer service.
Me too.
But I think that that's undervalued, right? The capability of being people is so undervalued, and I really would like to see that come back.
Okay,
I can go controversial here. I think AI is overvalued. Yeah, I think like in general, we look at AI and the things that it's done, and we translate into it can do anything. Like that there is no limits whatsoever about what this technology can do, and we're just not there.
Okay, so I'll give you my inside of the world of AI. I'll give you one that's overvalued and one that's undervalued. The overvalued one is this new startup called superintelligent.ai. When you get there, it says it's going to teach you, it's going to use AI to teach you, and that's like, I'm going, that's interesting. What it is a list of YouTube tutorial sites that'll cost you $20. You know, that's all it does. If you did a search in YouTube, it would give you the results. So internet marketers taking advantage of the AI term is overvalued. What's undervalued are things that bring joy in the AI world. My favorite is Suno.ai, S-U-N-O. It helps you write a song. So in our AI class, the very first lesson is make a song and dedicate it to someone you love, right? Everyone does that assignment. And they love it, they post it, and it gives us free advertising, so I love it too. And if the students are younger, I say, make a song about your parents, right? And it is wonderful when that happens. The second lesson is called, the first lesson is called Lead with Joy, so we just like celebrate what's fun. And those things are undervalued. Our second lesson is called Pivot to Practicality, where we teach prompt engineering. The amount of homework that actually successfully gets done goes from 100% to 20. Like nobody wants to do actual work with AI, apparently. So I don't know how to solve that problem, but yeah, it makes the entire song for you. It orchestrates it. It uses singers, digital singers, and it sounds good. It sounds like, you know, Taylor Swift sang it. Hopefully it wasn't Taylor Swift that's been digitized because she's going to sue them. But the results were like mind-blowingly good. It sounded like a top 40 tune when it came out in 2 minutes. And you didn't even need to write the lyrics. It says, do you have lyrics? If you don't, I'll make some up for you. Right? And so you give it a prompt, you use a ChatGPT, generates you tune it up, and then you give it, and 2 minutes later, this thing pops out, which actually sounds really good. So, and we use that as the first lesson because people realize it feels good when you can control AI and bend it to your will, right? When AI bends you to its will, it doesn't feel good. So my theory is that there are only 3 jobs in the future. You build AIs and robots, you repair AIs and robots, or you do what robots tell you to do, right?
So for those of you who are hoping for a actionable stock tip, as the answer to that question, I'm about to give you one. Are you ready? Overvalued. Truth Social. Who agrees? Who doesn't know what Truth Social is? Let's see. Let's talk about chips. You know, there's a question here about China and Taiwan and what that might mean for complex chip manufacturing and availability, which is kind of integral to everything we're talking about here. What should we be doing to protect ourselves from disruptions in kind of the availability of advanced chips?
Well, I think we've been doing them. In the last, 2 or 3 years, the administration pumped a bunch of money back into the United States to try to get contractors to bring chip manufacturing back to the US. I just happen to know this because I was trying to encourage my friends to go in with me to do a chip company. None of them agreed to it, as you can imagine. I'm not a millionaire. So the challenge we had during COVID is we did start using chips from questionable places. In 2016, laptops were being created for Lenovo. And inside of their chipsets, one of the things it did had a command that it was essentially sending health checks back to China, which doesn't sound like a bad thing if you're a home user. but we bought thousands of them and we issued them to the military. And we don't like other people to know what we're doing or where we're at. So we struggled with that. So we had to create compensating controls to try to prevent that. The challenge during COVID was that we were using chipsets from literally anywhere we can get it. At the time, there was a manufacturing delay for cars. All vehicles today use incredible chipsets to do things like run your GPS, do your Apple CarPlay, whatever, right? Like all the magical infotainment systems. Those infotainment systems were really interesting in that back, I think in like 2018, there was a demo at Black Hat where essentially they hacked into a Jeep and then they were like remote control navigate, like they were driving the car using a Nintendo controller from somewhere else, right? So these are some of the interesting things that happen. The policy today is try to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Most of you know that we went from being a regular economy to a service economy. This happened years ago, right? And so we did the opposite. We were like, hey, we don't want to do manufacturing. We don't want the pollution in our air, so we're going to send it to another country. And we did that in droves. And if you've ever been to West Virginia or some places in the iron belts of the United States, manufacturing is gone. Textile manufacturing is gone. Like some of those industries. And we're starting to see a lot of that come back, but not just in chip manufacturing, but in other ways. We're starting to have really serious conversations about where we're putting stuff in the cloud. Your cloud environment can reside, say, Amazon. Amazon Web Services has replication. You can have your data replicated not only in the US, in California and Washington, D.C., and in other places, but it could be going offshore to another country that maybe you don't feel comfortable having your data reside there because other countries have other laws. And in China, for example, your data, if it ever goes to China, can be read by the government. The government can essentially say, hey, we want that data, we want to see it. And as a business, maybe that's not what you want. So we are starting to see a lot of movement coming back to the United States because there's kind of this perception of protection. If it's here within our borders, then you're safer.
I'm going to jump in just because we got a couple minutes left, and I know Moses wants to give a promotion of something or another. And I'm going to end with a really quick question. This is a joke. Not the question, but it's not quick, so we're not going to be able to answer it. But what are your thoughts about Neuralink? Quick. Thoughts about Neuralink? It's a question I can't answer. Anyone?
I don't have any friends who are paraplegics, but I'm sure they would love one.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. For the fringes usages, I think it would be incredibly useful right away. While we do that, we can figure out how it fits with the rest.
All right, great. Thanks.
I think
Moses, I think you, go ahead.
I think we're doing it, right? I mean, there's already studies where people have had something embedded, help people who are like paraplegics be able to communicate or do things right with their bodies that they couldn't do before. I think the future of that is now.
Moses, you wanted to say one more thing?
Yeah, so I really want to change the world, and I'd like to invite all of you to join me. And the project is called Manhattan 2, and you can go to the website manhattan2.team and join our team. And this morning I went and gave a talk at the high school, and I issued an invitation for high school students to join and your teachers to join and be the first high school in the project, right? Just like, what would it be like if every student were AI trained? Why not do that for the entire city of Boulder or the entire state? So I think that those are the kinds of things we should think about. And if you want to play with us, we would love to play with you. So come and check out manhattan2.team.
Great. And then we're going to end with a quiz for the audience to see who was paying attention earlier.
Number?
2.
To the number or the alphabet? The number.
The number
Yes, the number 2.
The number 2.
Manhattan2.team. Sorry.
All right. So quiz to end it. See who was paying attention earlier. What's going to be on TV tonight? Anyone?
You.
City, Boulder and Denver's answer. Cities on the rise. Cities of success. What time is it going to be on? What channel is it going to be on? And we're all going to watch it because it's about Denver and Boulder if I'm in it, it's a small piece. This is really about a lot more people who are making a difference here and what we're doing overall, and it's awesome, I hope, because I haven't seen it, but I'm hoping it's awesome. So thank you. This is a great panel. Thanks, panelists. This was awesome. Appreciate you guys being part of it.